Chapter 1. The Nguyen Sisters. The gentle morning sun peeked through the beige curtains, casting golden lines across the living room floor of the Nguyen family home in San Jose, California. The soft scent of jasmine tea lingered in the air, a comforting aroma that filled the modest two-story house every weekend morning. Emily Nguyen sat cross-legged on the carpet. Her sketch pad balanced on her knees, a dozen colored pencils spread out around her like sun rays. Her brow furrowed in concentration as her hand moved in smooth, practiced strokes. At just 17, Emily possessed the kind of raw, instinctive talent that made adults pause and marvel. Her art was not just technique, it was emotion, story, soul. In the kitchen, Linda Nguyen leaned against the doorframe, sipping from a chipped mug, watching her younger sister draw. At 20, Linda had once been the golden child, top of her class, accepted into UCLA, praised for her maturity and leadership. But that spotlight had quietly shifted to Emily over the past few years, and now Linda stood in its shadow, nursing something bitter and sharp in her chest. Their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Nguyen, adored both daughters equally, or so they claimed. But the subtle signs were impossible to ignore. The way their mother proudly shared Emily's latest contest wins on Facebook, or how their father would hang up Emily's sketches in the hallway for every guest to see. Linda's high school trophies, by contrast, had been quietly moved into a cardboard box in the garage. Linda didn't hate her sister. At least, that's what she told herself. Emily was sweet, soft-spoken, always eager to share. Never boastful. But it was precisely that goodness, that effortless brilliance, that made Linda feel more like a background character in her own family. "Morning, Em," Linda said finally, her voice neutral. Emily looked up, startled, and broke into a smile. "Hey, Linda. Look at this. Do you think the shading looks okay on this tree? I'm not sure if the light source makes sense." Linda crossed the room, crouched beside her sister, and peered at the drawing. It was a landscape, a dreamlike forest path with glowing leaves and sunlight filtering through twisted branches. Of course it was beautiful. Of course it looked professional. Of course it didn't need her input. "It looks good," Linda said flatly, standing up too quickly. Her knee cracked, and she winced. "You sure? I can change it," Emily started, but Linda had already turned toward the hallway. "It's fine. I'm going out," she called over her shoulder. As the door clicked shut behind her, Emily sat frozen, the colored pencil still in her hand, hovering above the page. Her eyes flicked toward the closed door, then back at her drawing. The light didn't feel so soft anymore. Later that day, Emily received the letter she'd been waiting for. It came in a sleek, white envelope embossed with gold lettering, National Teen Arts Final, official invite. She gasped, tearing it open, her eyes scanning the words with disbelief. She'd made it to the national finals in New York City, the most prestigious teen art competition in the country. Only 10 finalists were chosen from thousands across the nation. Emily screamed. Her parents rushed into the living room, thinking something was wrong. "I got in," she cried, waving the letter like a flag of victory. "I made it to the finals." Their mother cupped Emily's face with both hands, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh my goodness. Sweetheart, we are so proud of you." Her father chuckled, hugging her tightly. "That's my girl. We'll book the flights tonight." "This is huge." Only Linda stood back, lingering at the doorway, a practiced smile on her face. She clapped slowly, her fingers stiff. "That's amazing, Em. Really." Emily turned, her cheeks flushed with joy. "I can't believe it, Linda. I mean, New York. I've never even been on a plane before." Linda forced a laugh. "Guess you're about to fly pretty high, little sis." That night, Linda lay awake staring at the ceiling, the pale blue glow of her phone illuminating the edge of her face. On Instagram, everyone was congratulating Emily. Hundreds of likes. Comments from local artists, even small press media outlets. She hadn't even left yet. And people were calling her the next big thing. Linda turned off her phone and pressed the pillow over her face. 3 days later, it rained. The kind of cold Unrelenting spring rain that soaked your clothes in seconds and blurred the city into wet smears of gray and silver. Emily stood at the curb, waiting for their dad to pull the car around. She wore a long raincoat, her sketch portfolio protected in a waterproof sleeve. Her suitcase was packed. Tomorrow, she'd be on a plane to New York. Tonight, they were going out for a celebratory dinner. She looked at her watch and frowned. Why was Dad taking so long? Across the street, in the driver's seat of their mother's old Honda, Linda gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. She hadn't meant to follow Emily. She just ended up there, watching, thinking. The rain distorted her view through the windshield. Her breath came faster. She wasn't thinking clearly. She hadn't been for days. A voice in her head whispered, what if it didn't happen? What if she didn't go? What if for once she didn't get everything? The lights blurred. Her heart pounded. The car jerked forward. And then impact. The scream. The thud. The umbrella spinning in the air like a broken bird. The rain kept falling harder now, washing everything away. Chapter 2. The Crash That Changed Everything. The world turned silent for a split second after the impact, an eerie, weightless quiet, as if time itself had paused to absorb what had just happened. Then came the chaos. The screech of tires. A nearby pedestrian shocked gasp. Emily's body hitting the pavement with a sickening thump. The sharp clatter of her sketch portfolio skidding into a puddle. Linda's heart stopped. For a brief moment, she sat frozen behind the wheel, staring in horror through the rain-smeared windshield. Her sister was lying on the wet asphalt, motionless, one leg twisted unnaturally beneath her. Her face was turned away, hair darkened and slick from the rain. Blood bloomed beneath her right shoulder like a crimson flower. No, 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 Linda whispered, throwing open the car door. Her feet hit the pavement and she slipped, nearly falling as she scrambled toward Emily. Oh my God, Emily. Emily let out a faint, pained groan. She was alive, but barely conscious. Linda knelt beside her, shaking. Emily, can you hear me? It's me, it's Linda, don't move, okay? Please don't move. Someone was already on the phone with 911. Another person held an umbrella over them, trying to shield Emily from the rain. Linda didn't notice. Her hands hovered uselessly over her sister's soaked jacket, not knowing where to touch, what to do. Her mind spun. What have I done? What have I done? The next few hours were a blur of blinding hospital lights, frantic paperwork, antiseptic smells, and endless waiting. Linda sat on a stiff plastic chair outside the emergency room, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her wet hair clung to her neck. Her shoes squelched every time she shifted her weight. When their parents arrived, her mother was crying, and her father looked pale as paper. The doctors said Emily had sustained a fractured clavicle and a severe sprain to her dominant arm, her right arm. There were also bruises, minor head trauma, and some cuts on her leg, but she was lucky to be alive. She would need weeks, if not months, to regain full use of her arm. And even then, it wasn't guaranteed she could draw the same way again. Will she still be able to paint? Mrs. Nguyen had asked, barely holding back tears. It's too early to say, the doctor replied gently. But it's possible that fine motor skills could be affected long-term. Linda felt the room spin. A quiet gasp escaped her lips, but no one noticed. Emily woke up the next morning in the hospital. Her face pale, arm in a sling, and her voice weak. She looked around, confused, then saw Linda sitting by the window. Linda, she murmured. Linda stood up, her heart thudding. I'm here, she said softly. You're okay. You're safe. Emily blinked slowly. Did I get hit by a car? Linda swallowed. Her throat felt like sandpaper. Yeah, it was raining. You didn't see it coming. But it's over now. You're in the hospital. Emily's eyes welled with tears. My flight, the competition. I know, Linda said, forcing the words out. I'm so sorry, Emily. But you're alive. That's what matters. Emily looked away, her bottom lip trembling. It was my dream, Linda. Linda wanted to cry, to scream, to confess right then and there that she had been the one behind the wheel. That it wasn't just bad luck. That she had followed her sister out of jealousy, driven by an ugly whisper inside her, and it had cost Emily everything. But instead, she stayed silent. Cowardice wrapped itself around her like a blanket. The house was quieter than ever in the weeks that followed. Emily came home with a cast and therapy appointments scheduled for months ahead. Her art supplies sat untouched on her desk. The once vibrant colors of her room, covered in posters, inspiration boards, and half-finished sketches, now felt like remnants of another life. Linda tried to be helpful. She cooked dinner, did the laundry, drove Emily to her therapy sessions. But the guilt gnawed at her every minute of every day. She couldn't sleep, could barely eat. One evening, while setting the table for dinner, she watched Emily in the living room, sitting in front of her sketch pad, staring at it blankly. Her left hand rested on the page, while her right arm, still in a brace, lay motionless. "I tried today," Emily said quietly, without turning around. "I held a pencil, just to see." Linda turned, holding her breath. "It felt wrong. Like my hand forgot how to move," Emily continued. Her voice cracked. "I think it's over for me." "No," Linda said quickly. "Don't say that. You'll get better." "The doctor said." "I know what the doctor said," Emily snapped, then immediately softened. "I'm sorry. I don't know who I am without art." Linda wanted to tell her, "You're still you. You're still kind. You're still brilliant. I'm the broken one. I'm the reason this happened." But she didn't. She simply placed the plates down and said, "We'll get through this. Together." Emily gave her a small, sad smile. But Linda's guilt was not so easily buried. Each night, the memory replayed in vivid detail. The rain, the impact, Emily's scream. Her hand trembled every time she picked up her keys. Her parents never suspected. The police had ruled it an accident. No camera footage. No charges. But she knew. And that knowledge was eating her alive. The day Emily tore the final page from her sketchbook and quietly placed it in the trash, Linda couldn't bear it any longer. She locked herself in her room and cried until her lungs hurt. She wanted to go back. To undo everything. To give her sister back the future she had stolen. But time, unlike art, had no eraser. Chapter 3. A Silent Distance. 3 months passed. And in those months, the air in the Gwyn household became something heavy and fragile, like glass hanging in midair. One wrong word away from shattering. Emily no longer brought her sketchbook to the dining table. No longer hummed as she sketched on the porch. No longer sat with Linda at night to watch old Studio Ghibli movies, the ones they used to love when they were kids. She wasn't angry. Not outwardly. But something in her had dimmed. Her laughter came less often, her voice quieter, her eyes vacant in moments she thought no one noticed. Linda noticed. Every single time. Linda started leaving early in the mornings. Even on weekends. She claimed she was working extra shifts at the design firm downtown, but really, she spent hours driving aimlessly through the streets of San Jose. Sometimes she sat in the parking lot of the art store Emily used to frequent, just staring at the front doors. Other days, she parked outside Emily's old art teacher's studio and watched students come and go, their portfolios tucked under their arms, their faces bright with purpose. It made her stomach twist with shame. She had stolen that from her sister. And still, she hadn't told the truth. One rainy Saturday morning, rain seemed to come more often these days. As if the sky itself was mourning, Linda returned home to find Emily standing at the sink, struggling to open a stubborn jar of strawberry jam with her left hand. Her right arm was finally free of the brace, but the muscles were still weak, unsteady. The jar wouldn't budge. Linda hesitated at the door, then stepped forward. "Let me help." Emily glanced over her shoulder. There was no hostility in her eyes, just tiredness. She handed Linda the jar silently. Linda twisted it open with ease and placed it back on the counter. "Thanks," Emily said softly. Linda stood there, unsure whether to leave or speak. "Do you ever think about drawing again?" she finally asked. Emily gave a dry laugh. Every day. The answer pierced deeper than Linda expected. But it's not the same anymore, Emily continued. When I hold a pencil now, it feels like someone else's hand. I can't trust it. Linda took a breath, her fingers twitching. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe your hand just needs time. Emily turned to face her. Linda, what if it doesn't? What if I can never be who I was again? Linda felt her throat close. Because of me, she wanted to scream. Because I let jealousy win. Because I was weak. Instead, she said, then maybe who you become next will be even better. Emily stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It was small, fragile, like the first sprout after a fire. That night, Linda finally opened the box she had kept hidden under her bed since the accident. The box with the car insurance papers, the city report, and the tiny red receipt from the auto body shop. Each item was a piece of her guilt. She took them out, one by one, and placed them in a folder. She wasn't sure what she was going to do yet, but she knew the lies couldn't last forever. Her heart needed room to breathe again. A week later, Linda found Emily sitting in the garden sketching, not with her right hand, but her left. The lines were crooked, the composition awkward. But it was something. Emily caught Linda watching and laughed self-consciously. Don't judge me. This is terrible. Linda sat beside her on the porch steps. It's not terrible. It's brave. Emily looked down at the shaky sketch. I don't know if I'll ever compete again. But I kind of just miss drawing, even if it's messy. Linda hesitated. Would it be okay if I joined you sometime? I mean, I'm not good or anything, but... Emily tilted her head, amused. You? Drawing? Linda blushed. I took one elective in high school. Remember? You quit after 1 week. I was bad at hands. Linda said with a chuckle. Still am. Emily laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. It was like spring breaking through winter. The next Sunday, the two sisters sat at the park with sketch pads in their laps. The clouds had cleared, leaving the sky a deep, open blue. Emily used her left hand to draw a crooked tree with oversized leaves. Linda was trying and failing to draw their family cat from memory. They giggled, shared snacks, and made fun of each other's drawings. It was nothing like the past. But maybe it didn't have to be. Maybe they could build something new. Together. Chapter 4. Confession Under Rainlight. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the letter arrived. Emily had just returned from physical therapy. Her steps lighter, more confident than a month ago. Her right arm was no longer in constant pain, and she could now hold light objects, open doors without effort. Even write a few shaky lines in her journal. She wasn't ready to paint with it yet, but the progress gave her hope. The envelope was plain white, no markings, no stamp. It was slipped under her bedroom door. At first, she thought it was something her parents had left, a note, or maybe a bill accidentally pushed in the wrong room. But when she opened it, her breath caught. Inside was a single piece of folded notebook paper. I need to tell you the truth. The handwriting was familiar. Hesitant. Linda. Emily stared at the words, her pulse quickening. Beneath it was a time, 8 p.m., and a place, our old fort in the backyard. The backyard fort was something they'd built as kids, a makeshift structure of blankets, broken chairs, and cardboard that had once been their shared kingdom. They hadn't stepped inside it in years. It was probably moldy now, sagging under time. But something about Linda choosing that place, it made Emily's chest tighten. She knew in her bones what this was. At 8 p.m., the sky was softly drizzling. The kind of rain that felt more like mist, gentle, reluctant. The clouds hadn't fully committed to a storm, but the air held that quiet stillness that comes before a truth breaks loose. Emily stepped outside in her hoodie, clutching the letter in her pocket. The backyard was dim, shadows falling across the fence. The old fort stood under the mulberry tree, its roof now patched with a plastic tarp. Linda had brought 2 folding chairs inside and a string of old fairy lights, powered by a USB battery pack, hung above their heads. It was warm, glowing, strangely familiar. Linda was already there, sitting with her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide and nervous. "Hey," Emily said gently as she ducked inside. Linda nodded. "Hey." They sat in silence for a while, the rain pattering softly on the tarp above. Emily waited. Linda exhaled shakily. "I did it," she said at last. "The accident. It wasn't just random. I hit you." Emily didn't move. Her expression didn't change. "I followed you that night," Linda continued, her voice trembling. "I don't even know why. I wasn't thinking. I saw you there, happy, about to leave for your dream, and something in me just broke. I didn't plan to hurt you. I swear. But I didn't stop either. I didn't slow down." She looked down at her hands. "After I hit you, I panicked. I lied. I pretended it was someone else. I couldn't live with what I'd done, but I also couldn't bring myself to confess." Emily's voice was low when she spoke. "Why no?" "Because you're trying so hard to heal," Linda whispered. "You're becoming whole again. And I can't move forward unless you know. Unless you really know who hurt you." The lights buzzed softly above them. The silence stretched. "I knew," Emily said quietly. Linda looked up, startled. "What?" "I didn't want to believe it," Emily admitted. "But there were things that didn't add up. The way you avoided me. The way you cried that night in the hospital when you thought I was asleep. I saw your shoes at the front door, wet, the ones you swore you hadn't worn that day." Linda's eyes brimmed with tears. "Why didn't you say anything?" Emily looked away, out into the dark yard. "Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I asked, and you admitted it, I'd never be able to look at you the same. That I'd lose my sister completely." Linda's shoulders shook. "You should hate me." Emily didn't speak right away. Then, softly, she said, "I did. For a while." Linda bit her lip to stop from crying out loud. "But then I remembered the girl who used to sneak cookies into my lunchbox," Emily said. "The one who let me sleep in her bed during thunderstorms. The one who gave me her favorite crayons when I ran out of blue. I couldn't hold on to the hate forever. Not when I still loved her." Linda broke. She cried the way a child cries, helplessly, shamelessly. She reached out but stopped halfway, unsure if she was allowed. Emily leaned forward and wrapped her arms around her. The rain picked up slightly, but inside their old fort, under the soft glow of the fairy lights, it felt warm. Like home. Later that night, as they lay on sleeping bags and old pillows, staring at the ceiling, Linda whispered, "I don't deserve this. Your forgiveness." "Maybe not," Emily said. "But maybe that's what love is. Choosing to give something anyway." Linda turned to face her. "I'll make it up to you. I swear. Every day if I have to." Emily smiled faintly. "Then let's start with breakfast tomorrow. Your turn to cook." Linda let out a wet laugh. "Only if you want burned eggs and toast that tastes like regret. I've had worse." Emily teased. For the first time in a long while, they both drifted to sleep without heaviness in their hearts. Chapter 5. The First Line. The morning after their confession under the tarp fort, something in the air felt different. Lighter. As if the backyard itself had exhaled. The clouds were gone. The sun was rising lazily over the San Jose rooftops, painting the sky in soft peach and lavender hues. Emily awoke first. She lay still for a moment, blinking at the string of fairy lights that had faded during the night. Linda was curled up beside her, mouth slightly open, one arm flung across a pillow. She looked like a child again, vulnerable, peaceful, without the weight of guilt pressed into every muscle. Emily sat up, careful not to wake her, and flexed her right hand. It trembled slightly, but it didn't hurt. That was something. By the time Linda stirred, Emily was inside, making tea. She poured 2 cups, one for herself, one for Linda, and added a splash of milk and honey to hers. She remembered Linda liked hers plain. Linda walked into the kitchen in oversized sweats, hair a mess, eyes puffy. "You made tea?" she asked, surprised. Emily nodded, sliding a cup toward her. "Breakfast too. Scrambled eggs. Toast, not burned." Linda took a sip and exhaled. "You're already better at this than me." They sat at the table for a few minutes in silence, sipping tea and watching the sun climb. Then Emily pushed her plate aside, stood, and said, I want to try drawing again. Linda blinked. Right now? Right now. They sat up in the living room, where the morning light fell best. Emily retrieved her sketch pad and a few pencils from her closet, ones she hadn't touched since the accident. Linda laid out a small table easel and cleared space on the couch. Emily stared at the blank page. Her right hand hovered above it like a cautious bird. Linda sat nearby, quiet but present, like a shadow without pressure. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Emily pressed the tip of the pencil to the paper. The line came out shaky, uneven, a wobbly curve that should have been straight. She paused. Tried again. A small circle. Then a leaf. A petal. Her fingers ached by the fifth stroke, but she didn't stop. She didn't cry either. Linda leaned forward. Is that the sunflower field we used to visit? Emily nodded. A small smile tugging at her lips. I wanted to start with something that made me happy. It's beautiful, Linda said, voice trembling. Emily looked down at the misshapen petals. The asymmetrical composition, the obvious tremors in her shading. It's a mess, she said honestly. But it's mine. Linda smiled through the tears welling in her eyes. Welcome back, artist. That afternoon, Emily and Linda went for a walk through their old neighborhood. They passed the library where Emily once won her first local art contest, a drawing of the librarian reading to children beneath a tree. The plaque was still there, though the colors had faded. They passed their elementary school playground, the swings still creaky, the paint chipped. Do you remember when we tried to build a zipline from the roof to the treehouse? Linda asked, grinning. We got grounded for a week, Emily laughed. You said we were engineers. Mom said we were idiots. They both burst out laughing. For the first time in what felt like years. The memory didn't sting. That evening, Emily found herself alone in her room, sketchbook on her lap. She flipped to a new page. This time, she didn't try to draw anything fancy. Just her hand. Her own hand, imperfect, healing, strong. She looked at it. Really looked. The scars. The tremor. The way the fingers curled just slightly inward now. And she drew it. It didn't come out perfect. But it came out true. And when she was done, she signed her name at the bottom, shakily, slowly, with pride. Emily Gwynn. Linda knocked gently on her door, poking her head in. Dinner's ready. Unless you want to draw more, I can bring it up here. Emily smiled and closed the sketchbook. No, let's eat. And after, you're helping me start an art account again. Linda's eyes widened. Like Instagram? Emily nodded. It's time. Even if I start over, I want to be seen. And I want you to see me. Linda walked in, pulled her sister into a hug. I've always seen you, Em. I just forgot how to love you without being afraid. Emily whispered back, then let's learn again. Together. Chapter 6, A New Beginning. Pixel by pixel. The software of Emily's laptop hummed in the background as she sat at her desk, bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Her sketchbook lay open beside her. The page turned to the drawing of her hand. The lines were shaky but deliberate, like someone learning how to speak again after losing their voice. Linda stood nearby, holding a mug of tea and watching as her sister clicked through the Instagram setup page. Username. Emily muttered to herself. How about at Broken and Blooming? Linda offered playfully. Emily raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a poetry account with 3 followers and 1 sad poem about rain. Linda laughed. Okay, fine. At Emily Draws Again. Emily tapped her chin. 2 on the nose. After several more attempts and giggles, they finally settled on at Art by M. Gwynn. Simple. Honest. Hers. With Linda's help, she uploaded her first post, the hand sketch, accompanied by a caption. Healing takes time. So does art. This is my first line after a long pause. Imperfect, but true. Emily. They sat in silence as the post went live, watched as the first like appeared from Linda. Of course, and then another, from her old art teacher, Ms. Gomez. She still follows you? Linda asked. Emily nodded. She emailed me after the accident. Said I didn't know the world perfection, just honesty. Linda smiled. Smart woman. Over the next week, Emily posted a drawing each day. Some were done with her left hand, clumsy and whimsical. Others were slow attempts with her healing right hand. She shared her struggles, her therapy updates, her small victories, opening a door by herself. Holding a pen for more than 15 minutes without shaking. People responded. Not with pity, but encouragement. Artists from across the country commented on her bravery. Strangers sent her DMs saying her journey reminded them of their own, from chronic illness, mental health battles, even other injury recoveries. Emily's story was no longer just hers. It was becoming a thread in something bigger, something human. Meanwhile, Linda changed too. She didn't say it out loud, but Emily saw the difference. Linda no longer avoided mirrors. She no longer came home and collapsed on the couch in silence. She enrolled back into her community college courses and began working on a design portfolio again. One evening, she knocked on Emily's door holding a tablet. "Hey, I want to show you something." Emily sat up on her bed. "What is it?" Linda pulled up a series of digital mock-ups, sleek, minimal interior designs using soft pastel tones and hand-drawn illustrations. "I'm designing therapy spaces," she explained. "Places that feel kind. I thought maybe I could start my own project one day, something for people healing from things that don't show up on X-rays." Emily stared at the screen, moved. "That's beautiful." Linda looked down, almost shy. "Would you want to design the wall art for one of them? Something just yours?" Tears sprang to Emily's eyes. Yes. God, yes. It was the first real collaboration they had ever done, not out of obligation, but choice. One morning, while scrolling through her DMs, Emily saw a message that made her heart skip. "Hi, Emily. I'm Julia Tran from the Rising Artists Fellowship. We've been following your recovery story and would love to invite you to our spring residency in Oregon. It's a 2-week retreat for emerging artists. All expenses covered. We believe your voice belongs here." Emily blinked, rereading it 3 times. Linda walked in seconds later to find her frozen in front of her phone. "What happened?" she asked, half worried. Emily looked up, dazed. "I just got invited to an artist residency." Linda dropped the bag of groceries she was holding. "Wait. What?" Emily held out the phone with trembling hands. Linda read the message and let out a squeal that startled the neighbor's cat. "Oh my God, you're going to Oregon." Emily laughed, eyes wide. "I don't even know what to pack." Linda grabbed her hands. "Pack the truth. Pack everything you are now. That's what got you invited." Later that evening, as they sat on the porch with hot chocolate, Linda turned to her sister. "You know," she said, "watching you rise again, it's kind of like seeing a flower bloom out of a crack in the sidewalk." Emily smiled. "And you're the one who watered it when the sun disappeared." They clinked mugs. In the quiet that followed, the sky above San Jose shimmered with the last hues of dusk, lavender, rose, and the promise of something new. Chapter 7. The Forest and the Flame. The air in Oregon smelled different. Fresher. Wilder. Like rain and pine and something untamed. Emily stepped off the shuttle van, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Before her lay the Rising Artists Fellowship retreat grounds, a collection of rustic wooden cabins nestled within a clearing of towering cedar trees. It felt like a world away from San Jose. A world where time slowed down. Where healing wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. Emily took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. She hadn't left California since before the accident. This was her first time traveling alone. A woman in her 30s wearing round glasses and a denim apron approached with a warm smile. "Emily Gwynn?" Emily nodded. "That's me." "I'm Julia," the woman said, offering a handshake. "Welcome to Rising Artists. We're so happy you're here." Her cabin was small but cozy, a single bed, a writing desk, a wide window that overlooked the woods. A welcome basket sat on the desk, snacks, a custom sketchbook embossed with her name, and a handwritten note. "Your story moved us. Your courage inspired us. Now let your art speak again, one breath, one line, one page at a time." Emily smiled, fingers brushing the gold embossed lettering on the sketchbook's cover. This wasn't just a trip. It was a beginning. The first few days passed in a kind of gentle rhythm. Each morning began with meditation by the lake, followed by open studio time. Afternoons brought guest workshops, watercolor techniques, experimental textures, storytelling through visuals. In the evenings, artists gathered around a campfire to share their work, their fears, their dreams. Emily kept mostly to herself at first, unsure if she belonged. Most of the others seemed older, bolder, tattooed, confident, effortlessly expressive. She worried she'd be the accident girl, the one who got in on sympathy. But then someone complimented her sketch of the forest. Then another asked how she captured emotion in empty space. Then Julia herself pulled her aside and said, "Your stillness is powerful, Emily. Don't underestimate it." By the end of the first week, she wasn't just participating. She was thriving. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, the group was invited to share a personal piece around the fire. Emily almost said no. Her palms were sweaty. Her heart raced. But then she remembered how far she'd come from a hospital bed to this circle of warmth and possibility. She stood, sketchbook in hand. "This piece is called After the Fall." Her voice was soft, but steady. "It's the first thing I drew when I could use my hand again. It's messy, uneven, but I didn't erase a single stroke." She turned the sketchbook toward them. The drawing was simple. A figure curled on the ground, cracked like porcelain, but from those cracks, flowers grew. Wildflowers. Vines. Life. There was silence. Then, a quiet wow. Then, applause. And then, something more powerful, nods from artists who understood. Not the details, but the emotion. The rebirth. Afterward, as Emily packed up her sketchbook, a voice beside her said, "That was brave." She looked up to see a tall boy around her age, with tousled dark hair and a charcoal-stained hoodie. His name tag read Aiden. "Thanks," Emily said, suddenly shy. "Yours too." The piece with the hands reaching through glass, that was incredible. Aiden smiled. "They're my hands. Anxiety tends to lock me in. Art helps me break through." Emily nodded. "Mine locked me out. I had to relearn everything I thought I knew." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both staring at the embers of the fire. Then Aiden said, "I'm glad you didn't stop drawing. The world would have lost something beautiful." Emily blinked, surprised. "Thank you." His voice was quiet. "I mean it." Over the next few days, they spent more time together, sketching by the lake, trading critiques, laughing over failed attempts at clay sculptures. Aiden wasn't flirtatious. He wasn't trying to impress. He was just kind. One afternoon, while painting in the meadow, he asked, "Do you believe people can become new after breaking?" Emily didn't answer right away. She looked down at her canvas, a swirl of bright oranges and deep purples layered over a faint outline of her old sunflower field. "I think," she said slowly, "we don't become new. We become more." Aiden smiled. "That's even better." On the final day of the residency, each artist was given a wall in the open gallery space to display a piece representing their journey. Emily chose the drawing of her hand, the very first one she'd posted on Instagram after beginning again. But this time, she framed it. Not because it was perfect, but because it wasn't. Beneath it, she wrote, "My hand forgot how to draw, but my heart remembered why. This is not a masterpiece. This is a promise." That night, as the stars appeared one by one above the clearing, Emily stood beneath the trees with Aiden and the other artists, their sketchbooks filled, their hearts full. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not grief, but freedom. Chapter 8. Home, but different. The taxi pulled up in front of the Nguyen family home just after sunset. The porch light flickered on automatically, casting a soft halo over the familiar welcome mat. Emily stepped out slowly, her suitcase rolling behind her, her sketchbook clutched in one hand like a trusted companion. It had only been 2 weeks, but everything felt different. Not just the house. Her. As she stood on the curb and took a breath, The front door swung open. Emily. Linda came bounding out barefoot, wearing an oversized t-shirt and leggings dusted with flour. "You're early." "I was just baking. Don't judge me. I missed you too much to sit still." Emily laughed as she dropped her bag and met her sister in a hug. "You baked? Without burning the kitchen?" "I only slightly melted a spatula," Linda replied, her face buried in Emily's shoulder. "You smell like trees. You smell like cookies. Chocolate chip banana walnut." Emily pulled back and grinned. "You've changed." "So have you," Linda said, her eyes searching Emily's face. "You're glowing." Emily rolled her eyes, but couldn't help smiling. "Well, 2 weeks in the forest will do that." They stood in silence for a moment, just looking at each other, the kind of gaze that holds gratitude, recognition, and 1,000 unspoken apologies all at once. Inside, the house felt the same, cozy, lived in, warm, but there were subtle changes. A new plant on the windowsill. The dining table set for 2. And on the wall above the stairs, where their family portrait used to hang, a framed print of Emily's sunflower sketch had taken its place. Emily stopped in front of it, touched. "You hung this?" Linda nodded. It felt right. Like something was finally growing again. Emily blinked back tears. "Thank you." They sat down at the table, warm cookies between them, milk glasses fogging up slightly in their hands. Emily recounted everything, the lake meditations, the night around the fire, her drawing on the gallery wall, Aiden's quiet wisdom. Linda listened without interrupting, pride dancing in her eyes. When Emily finally paused to take a breath, Linda leaned forward. "I have something for you too." She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Emily opened it carefully. Inside was a series of digital renderings, cozy therapy rooms with pastel walls, warm lighting, and hand-drawn artwork. A title at the top of each concept page read, "The Nest, a space for emotional healing." Emily looked up in surprise. "This is yours?" Linda nodded, almost sheepish. "I've been working on it while you were gone. I'm applying for a small business grant. I want to design a space where people like us, people who've broken and mended, can come breathe again." Emily was quiet for a moment. Then softly, "You're building something beautiful." "I'm trying," Linda said. "And I was hoping, maybe you'd be the official artist? Fill the walls with your work?" Emily's throat tightened. "You want me to be part of this?" "You're this," Linda whispered. "You're why I started." That night, Emily unpacked slowly. Each item brought back memories. The pine-scented notebook, the pressed flowers she'd picked by the lakeside, the tiny thank you card from Aiden that read, "Keep blooming." She paused when she reached the final item. The framed sketch she had shown at the retreat, her hand, drawn from brokenness, signed with honesty. She placed it on her desk beside a new, fresh sketchpad. Then she turned on her lamp, rolled up her sleeves, and began to draw. Not from fear. Not to prove anything. But because it was how she breathed. The next morning, Linda found a note taped to her bedroom door. "Let's build something healing. Together. Love, M." Attached to it was a tiny sketch, 2 sisters, standing beneath a tree, planting a seed. Chapter 9. The Seed We Planted. 2 months later. The soft clinking of mugs and quiet hum of conversation filled a small sunlit space in downtown San Jose, a studio nestled between a florist and a bookstore. Inside, pastel walls carried the scent of lavender and wood polish, while watercolor paintings in soft hues lined the hallways. Every brushstroke told a story of survival, vulnerability, and hope. Above the door hung a hand-painted sign. The Nest, a studio for emotional healing. It was Linda's dream, given shape. And it was Emily's art that brought it to life. Each room had a different theme: gentle beginnings, storm and stillness, forgive and bloom. The names weren't just pretty. They were earned. Classes filled quickly. People came from different walks of life, teenagers grappling with anxiety, adults navigating grief, even retirees trying to rediscover purpose. Some came just to sit. Some came to cry. Some came to paint. They didn't need to be artists. They just needed to be human. On a Tuesday afternoon, Linda stood at the reception counter, organizing forms for an upcoming community workshop when Emily stepped out of the back room, wiping charcoal from her hands. "You have paint on your nose," Linda said, grinning. Emily shrugged. "It's abstract expressionism." They both laughed. "Hey," Emily said, voice softening. "I've been thinking." Linda looked up. "It's time we tell them." Linda didn't need to ask who. Her expression faltered. "You sure?" Emily nodded. "We can't build something rooted in truth if we're still hiding pieces of it." Linda looked down, her hands stilling on the papers. She had thought about this moment 100 times. Feared it. Dreaded it. But now, with the studio open, with Emily healed not just in hand but in heart, something in her agreed. "Okay," she said. "We'll tell them together." That weekend, they invited their parents to dinner. It wasn't a special occasion. No birthday, no holiday. Just a meal: rice, grilled fish. Their mother's favorite pickled cabbage. Comfort food. Familiar. Mr. and Mrs. Nguyen arrived on time, smiling, chatting about the neighbors, the heat wave, and a movie they'd seen on TV. They hadn't asked many questions about the studio beyond proud congratulations. They didn't know what the space meant. Not yet. After dinner, Emily poured tea, her hands steady as ever, while Linda cleared the plates. Then the sisters sat across from their parents, hearts pounding in tandem. "I have something to say," Linda began, voice firm but trembling. "And I need you to hear it all the way through." Her parents turned to her, surprised by the solemnity in her tone. "I was the one who caused Emily's accident." The words fell like stones into the quiet room. Mrs. Nguyen blinked. "Linda, what are you?" "I was driving that night," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I didn't even realize what I was doing until it was too late. But I followed her. I was jealous. Lost. I lied. To all of you." Silence. Their father's hand tightened around his teacup. Their mother's face crumpled, lips parting but no words coming. Emily reached over and placed her hand gently on Linda's arm. "I forgave her," she said softly. "A long time ago. Because the truth is, that night changed both of us. We broke, but we also rebuilt. Together." Linda's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I never expected forgiveness. But I needed you to know. I couldn't keep building the studio, this life, on silence." A long, weighted pause settled over the table. Then their mother, slowly, stood up, walked over to Linda. Her hands were trembling as she touched her daughter's face. "You came home every day and still carried this," she whispered. Linda nodded. Mrs. Nguyen pulled her into a hug. "We are not perfect parents. We made mistakes too. But we love you. Both of you. And we're proud, not because you never fall, but because you stand back up." Their father came around next. He didn't say anything. He just held both daughters tightly, and Emily could feel his breath shuddering as he fought back tears. That night, after their parents left, Linda and Emily sat on the couch in the quiet, wrapped in a soft blanket, a candle burning low on the table. "You did it," Emily whispered. "You told the truth." "We did it," Linda replied. "Together." Outside, the wind rustled the leaves gently. The world didn't end. It simply moved forward, softer, cleaner, freer. And inside the nest, two sisters kept planting seeds of healing in themselves, and in everyone brave enough to walk through their door. Chapter 10. The Ticket to Tomorrow. It arrived in an envelope made of thick cream cardstock, the kind that made you pause before tearing it open. Embossed on the front in elegant serif letters were the words, "International Emerging Artists Exhibition, Berlin 2026. Emily sat at her desk in the nest, staring at it, her hands still smudged with charcoal from a morning class. Her heart thudded. Inside was the invitation, a curated showcase of 25 young artists from around the world. Travel, lodging, studio space, all covered. One of the featured works? Her piece, After the Fall, the one she'd drawn from the memory of pain, the one that helped her heal. She read the letter 3 times, then held it close to her chest. And then, instinctively, she looked up and called out Linda. Linda burst through the door in her usual whirlwind way, apron on, tablet in one hand. What? Are we out of paint again? Did someone spill on the storm and stillness wall again? Please tell me it's not. Emily just held out the envelope. Linda took it, read, and froze. Her eyes grew wide. Her mouth fell open. Berlin? Emily nodded, breathless. Berlin. Linda stared at her. You're going. I know. But not alone, Emily added. You're coming with me. Linda blinked. What? I want you there. Not just as my sister. Not just as the person who caused the worst and helped me find my best. But as you. The woman who built this place with me. Who taught me what forgiveness really means. Linda laughed softly, disbelieving. Emily, you realize I've never even been out of the country? Neither had I until Oregon, Emily said with a grin. That worked out pretty well. Linda sat down slowly in the chair opposite, letting the truth of it wash over her. You really want to travel the world together? She asked. You and me. I've always wanted to, Emily replied. I just needed to learn how to carry less pain in my suitcase. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation, visas, travel plans, press kits, translated artist statements. Linda renewed her passport for the first time in years, and Emily designed a new series of prints to accompany her featured work. They shared the news with the studio family, the students, the volunteers, the artists who had become part of their story. The community responded with warmth, cheers, and even a handmade travel journal titled The Nguyen Sisters' Adventure. The night before their flight, they sat in Emily's room, surrounded by open suitcases, clothes in piles, adapters, and power banks scattered like confetti. I'm scared, Linda admitted. Folding a sweater neatly. What if I don't belong? What if people look at me and think, she's just tagging along? Emily looked at her with soft, steady eyes. Then I'll tell them the truth. That none of this exists without you. That I'm not tagging you along, I'm bringing my roots. Linda smiled, touched. You always did know how to say it like an artist. Only when I mean it, Emily said. They high-fived, giggled like kids, and stayed up late packing and repacking until finally collapsing into bed. The next morning, they boarded the plane. For a moment, as the engines rumbled and the city of San Jose disappeared beneath the clouds, Linda reached for Emily's hand. Emily held it, steady and sure. We're really doing this, Linda whispered. Emily nodded. Not running from the past. Just flying into the future. And as the plane soared into the sky, neither of them looked back. Because sometimes healing doesn't mean going back to where you were. It means discovering how far you can go when you take the right hand with you. Chapter 11. City of Bridges. Berlin was unlike anything Emily had imagined. It was loud and quiet all at once, a place where sleek glass towers stood beside remnants of old stone walls, where techno music pulsed from hidden alleyways and church bells rang above street cafes filled with strangers speaking at least 4 languages at once. On their first morning, Emily stood at the window of their tiny Airbnb in Kreuzberg, staring down at the cobbled street below. A woman cycled past with a dachshund in her bike basket. A tram whirred softly by. Everything was foreign and oddly peaceful. Behind her, Linda shuffled into the kitchenette, hair in a frizzy bun, yawning like a bear. We're really here, she mumbled, pouring coffee. Emily turned and grinned. In Berlin. For an international exhibition. Not bad for 2 girls from a backyard fort, huh? Linda snorted. One of whom almost burned it down. One of whom drew flames all over it and said it was symbolism. They both laughed. It felt good, rooted in memory, but lighter now. The exhibition space was located in an old renovated tram depot turned modern gallery. Wide open walls, exposed beams. Skylights that let natural light pour down onto curated artwork from across the world. Emily's framed sketch, After the Fall, was displayed beside an artist from Kenya and another from Finland. Standing before her own work in that space, seeing the gallery's visitors stop, read her artist's statement, linger in front of the drawing, Emily felt something quiet click into place. Not ego. Not pride. But wholeness. At the private preview that night, artists mingled in clumps, exchanging stories, ideas, nervously sipping wine or sparkling water. Emily wore a simple black dress and clutched a small notebook in her hand, while Linda, surprisingly poised in a deep blue pantsuit, walked beside her with the air of someone who had finally stopped apologizing for existing. They met curators, translators, mentors, and even a publisher from Amsterdam who offered to showcase Emily's sketches in a therapeutic art workbook for trauma survivors. Linda lit up. "We run a healing studio back in California." "Oh?" the publisher said, intrigued. "Together." "Yes," Emily said proudly. "We built it after everything fell apart. And now it's helping others find their pieces too." The next morning, they wandered along the Spree River, hands in their pockets, jackets zipped up against the breeze. Linda pointed at a graffiti-covered wall near the East Side Gallery. "That one's yours." Emily followed her finger and laughed. "That flower has 3 eyes. Exactly your style." Linda's tone turned more reflective. "You know what's weird? I thought coming here might feel like leaving something behind. But it kind of feels like arriving." Emily nodded. "Arriving in the life we're choosing." They walked in silence for a while. Then Linda said, quietly, "You saved me too, you know." Emily glanced at her. "I used to think I destroyed your future," Linda whispered. "But watching you rebuild it, it rebuilt me too." Emily wrapped an arm around her. "Then we're both artists. Of a different kind." They stood there, facing the painted fragments of history on the Berlin Wall, once a symbol of division, now a canvas of healing. It felt fitting, because this part of their journey wasn't just about art or travel. It was about where the cracks had once been, and how the light had found its way in. Chapter 12. Sketches in Florence. The train ride from Berlin to Florence was long but scenic, fields of sunflower gold giving way to rolling vineyards, terracotta roofs, and the faint outline of Tuscan hills. Emily sat by the window, her sketch pad open in her lap, capturing fleeting moments in loose pencil strokes, a woman braiding her daughter's hair on the platform, a dog asleep beside a violin case, Linda smiling in her sleep as the train swayed gently. There was something sacred about movement, Emily realized. When the body moved, the heart often followed. And theirs had come so far. Florence greeted them with late spring warmth and the smell of blooming wisteria. The city was a painting itself, domed cathedrals, Renaissance statues standing guard in quiet piazzas, and narrow alleys filled with secrets. Emily inhaled deeply, letting the air settle into her lungs. "We're staying here for a week," she told Linda as they exited Santa Maria Novella station. "There's an artist residency house just off Via Romana." "Do they speak English?" Linda asked, eyes wide as she tried to read the street signs. Emily grinned. "Enough to invite me, so, probably." The residency house was an old villa with ivy crawling up its stone walls and a garden filled with fig trees and clay pots. It hosted 6 artists from different countries, writers, sculptors, photographers. At dinner the first night, they gathered around a candlelit table under the stars. That's where they met Isabella, a woman in her 60s, with silver-streaked curls and the kind of presence that felt like a warm shawl around the shoulders. She was the host and mentor of the program, a painter whose own career had spanned decades. Tragedy, war zones, and personal loss. "I read your story," Isabella said to Emily, her Italian accent soft but lilting. "What you endured. What you created from it. You carry your pain like a poem." Emily flushed, humbled. "It's not always graceful. Neither is art," Isabella said with a smile. "But truth doesn't need to be tidy to be powerful." Each morning, Emily painted in the garden while Linda wandered Florence with her sketchbook and a borrowed film camera. She wasn't an artist by trade, but she was learning to see like one, pausing in unexpected places, capturing shadows, the shape of a passerby's laughter. One afternoon, Linda returned to the villa with tear-streaked cheeks. Emily looked up from her easel, alarmed. "What happened?" "I found the Basilica of Santa Croce," Linda said quietly. "I don't even know why I went in. But there was this woman lighting a candle, and she looked just like Mom." Emily put down her brush. "I realized something," Linda said. "That I haven't truly forgiven myself yet. Even though you did. Even though they did. There's still a part of me inside that hasn't let go." Emily stepped forward and gently took her sister's hand. Then let's go light one too. That evening, they returned to the basilica together. The interior was cool and echoing, the smell of incense lingering like memory. They moved silently, reverently, until they reached the altar of candles. Linda lit one. Emily lit one beside it. They didn't say anything. Didn't have to. The flickering flames danced between them, not as symbols of sorrow, but of gratitude. For survival. For second chances. For each other. Back at the villa, Isabella joined them in the garden as twilight fell. Sometimes, she said, the fire that once destroyed us becomes the light that leads us forward. Emily looked down at her sketch pad, a new piece forming, two women standing in front of a chapel, their shadows long. Their heads close, hands clasped. She's not just my sister, Emily said softly. She's the brush that helped repaint my life. Linda smiled through tears. And she's the color I didn't know I needed. Isabella nodded. Then I hope you travel far. There are many cities in the world. But healing is its own country. Chapter 13. The gallery beneath the sky. Paris arrived in a rush of raindrops and music. Their train pulled into Gare de Lyon under a charcoal sky, and by the time they reached their apartment in Le Marais, the cobbled streets were slick with rain, glistening like mirrors. Linda pressed her forehead to the window, watching couples walk beneath umbrellas, a street musician playing cello under an awning. This city feels like it's always remembering something, she murmured. Emily smiled. That's why artists love it. Everything feels like a memory before it's even happened. Their reason for visiting was simple. Emily had been invited to a private showcase at a contemporary gallery called Ciel Souterrain, Sky Beneath. It was tucked into the cellar of a 19th-century townhouse, an experimental space for young artists exploring emotional narrative. But the invitation had come with a note that lingered in her mind. We do not only display art. We discover the artists behind it. Come prepared to reveal not just what you see, but what you fear. Emily hadn't shown Linda that part. Not yet. The next evening, they descended the curved staircase into Ciel Souterrain, and Emily instantly understood the name. The gallery was underground, but the ceiling was made of glass panels leading up into the street above. People passed by, unaware they were walking over a gallery of confession, color, and pain. Art covered every surface. Violent splashes of red acrylic, delicate charcoal grief, digital prints that hummed with unease. It wasn't beautiful in the traditional sense. It was raw. Emily's hands trembled as she passed a wall labeled Bleeding Rooms, each piece accompanied by a handwritten paragraph from the artist. Not an explanation. A truth. Her piece, a large mixed media painting titled Fragments of Her, was displayed near the far wall. It was a silhouette of a young girl, her hands cracked open like broken pottery, spilling not blood but petals. There were faint pencil lines over her shoulders that echoed fingerprints. She had painted it 2 months before Berlin. She hadn't been ready to show it until now. Beside it, her paragraph. There are people I love who once hurt me. There are days I love myself and days I cannot stand my reflection. This painting is not forgiveness. It is the space I left for it. Linda stood beside her, reading in silence. Then softly, this is you. And me. Emily nodded. For a long while, they didn't speak. And then a voice interrupted. Polished. Male. French accented. Emily Gwynn? She turned to find a man in a tailored gray jacket, perhaps late 40s, smiling with a kind of reserved intensity. I'm Marc Lefebvre. I curate the personal collection for Maison Dumas. Emily blinked. That was a prestigious private art house, collectors who supported long-term artists and funded international residencies. I've followed your work since Berlin, he continued. And this honesty? It's rare. I'd like to offer you a 6-month sponsored residency in Paris. You would have full access to a studio in Montmartre and living support. We would feature your work across Europe. Emily's breath caught. Behind her, Linda stood frozen. Mark smiled gently. There's no rush to decide. But I hope you'll consider what it could mean, not just for your career, but your voice. He slipped her a card, nodded respectfully, and walked away. Later that night, They sat on their apartment balcony. The Eiffel Tower blinked faintly in the distance like a quiet heartbeat. Emily held the card in her lap. Linda finally spoke. So, Paris for 6 months. Emily didn't answer. You should do it, Linda added, her voice calm but unreadable. It's everything you've worked for. It's not just about me, Emily said. Linda gave a half smile. It is, It's okay for it to be. I'll fly back home. Keep the nest running. It was always your art that built it. I was just the scaffolding. Emily turned sharply. Don't say that. You were the foundation. Linda looked away. I was also the wrecking ball, remember? Emily was silent. Then, maybe that's why I want you to come with me. Linda frowned. To Paris. You could design here, Emily said. Hopeful. You said you wanted to build healing spaces. Why not do it in Montmartre? Linda hesitated. I don't speak French. You speak hope, Emily whispered. And that's the only language I ever needed. They didn't make a decision that night. But the city didn't ask them to. Paris simply held them, in its quiet corners and rain-kissed rooftops, in morning cafes and midnight bridges. The city, like their story, was still unfolding. And for the first time in years, both sisters were ready to turn the page. Chapter 14. The space between us. The next morning, Emily woke early. Paris was still quiet, bathed in a soft gray light as if the whole city was pausing to breathe. She stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching bakery deliveries arrive, old men walk their dogs, and street sweepers glide past puddles from the night's rain. Behind her, Linda stirred, stretching with a groggy sigh. You're up early. Emily turned, hesitant. Couldn't sleep. Linda sat up, brushing hair from her face. Still thinking about the residency? Emily nodded. It's everything I've dreamed of, but I'm terrified. Linda tilted her head. Terrified of what? Success? No, Emily said softly. Of doing it without you. The silence that followed wasn't sharp. It was soft, sad, the kind that settles between people who love each other deeply but know a shift is coming. Linda got up and poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs. You know, when we were kids. I used to hate how close we were. Emily raised an eyebrow. I always thought being your sister meant I had to orbit around you. That if I wasn't with you, I wasn't enough. Emily frowned. But that's not true. I know, Linda cut in gently. I know now. But it's taken me years to stop defining myself through you. She handed Emily a mug. Their fingers touched for a moment. And now that I finally feel like I'm standing on my own, Linda continued, you're afraid of losing me. And I'm afraid that if I stay too close, I'll forget how to walk alone. Emily blinked back sudden tears. So what do? We trust that love doesn't mean holding hands all the time, Linda said. Sometimes. It means letting go for a while, but never walking too far. That afternoon, they visited Montmartre. The cobbled hills shimmered in the midday sun. Artists setting up their easels in Place du Tertre, accordion music drifting down stairways. Emily stood in front of the studio building Mark had mentioned, a charming 2-story with ivy crawling up the side, sunlight pouring in through arched windows. She could see herself here. Could imagine mornings with coffee and charcoal. Could imagine nights sketching by candlelight, Paris outside her window. She looked at Linda. And Linda smiled. Stay, she said. Do this. Not for me. For you. Emily nodded. Her voice was quiet, but sure. Then come back in a few months. Not to help me, but to show me what you've built. Linda grinned through glassy eyes. Deal. They hugged long, hard, and with more peace than pain. 3 days later, Linda boarded a flight back to San Jose. Emily stood at Charles de Gaulle Airport, heart thudding, watching her sister disappear through security. It was the first time they'd been apart since the accident. The first time Emily would be the one waving goodbye. But there was no fear in her chest. Just a quiet certainty. They weren't separating. They were growing in different directions on purpose. Back in San Jose, the nest welcomed Linda home with warmth and open arms. She redesigned 2 new rooms, launched a free evening support group, and even started a personal blog. Healing, honestly. Meanwhile, in Montmartre, Emily painted with freedom. She explored, failed, experimented. Her hand no longer trembled when she picked up a brush, and her heart no longer flinched when it was just her and the blank page. They called each other every Sunday. Sometimes they cried. Most of the time they laughed. And they signed every call with the same words. Keep creating. I'm still with you. Chapter 15. Reunion at the Edge of Change. It was October in Montmartre. The leaves gold and rust, the air crisp, the kind of weather that made you feel nostalgic for things not yet finished. Emily stood in the corner of her Paris studio, gazing at her latest piece, a sprawling canvas of overlapping silhouettes, two women walking through different seasons, always parallel, always close. She called it Together, Apart. Behind her, her phone buzzed. Linda, flight lands tomorrow at 10:20 a.m. You better bring croissants. And don't cry at the arrivals gate. Actually do. I want drama. Emily laughed, typing back. Tear ducts ready. Paris won't know what hit it. The next morning, Emily stood outside the international arrivals gate at Charles de Gaulle. A paper bag of pastries in one hand and a single sunflower in the other. And then there she was. Linda emerged, dragging a worn suitcase, her smile wide enough to split the sky. They didn't speak at first. Just hugged. Hard. Long. Like two halves of something ancient finally realigned. I missed you, Linda whispered. Emily pulled back. You look taller. I redesigned an entire floor of the nest, Linda said with mock pride. Healing does that to you. They laughed, linked arms, and headed into the city. Later that afternoon, they walked along the Seine, the Eiffel Tower glowing faintly in the distance, and sat beneath a willow tree with hot drinks and half-eaten pastries. Linda pulled out a small notebook and handed it to Emily. Inside were sketches, layouts, and a bold title. The Nest, Global. Emily looked up, eyes wide. I want to open a second branch. Linda said softly. Not just in San Jose. Maybe here. Or Berlin. Or anywhere healing is needed. But I can't do it without you. Emily blinked. You're asking me to come home? I'm asking you to help me expand what we started, Linda said. Not because you owe me, but because the world needs more places like the Nest. And we've proven we can build it. Emily stared out at the river. The city she had come to love. The solitude that had challenged her. The freedom that had remade her. I thought leaving home meant becoming someone new, she said. Linda nodded. It did. But maybe going back, Emily added, means becoming someone whole. They spent their last night in Paris side by side in the studio, painting across from each other in silence. Linda's lines were simpler, abstract. Emily's were layered, emotional. The canvases were different, but the colors sang the same language. At one point, Linda whispered, Do you ever think we'd be here? Emily smiled. Only in dreams. And now? Emily set down her brush. Now I dream further. 2 weeks later. They boarded a flight together, not to return to who they were, but to plant something new. Their flight path curved westward, the clouds opening to sunrise. Emily took her sister's hand and whispered, Let's build again. Linda squeezed back. This time, without breaking. And above the Atlantic, with the sky between them and everything they'd survived, two sisters flew not toward an ending, but toward a horizon made entirely of healing.